You didn't go to Portchester?
No, because we had other things on bound to do with the family.
Okay, fair enough. Right, okay. I'm just gonna make sure that Baldrick's in bed, and I'm gonna get started.
Anybody seen that program about Neanderthals?
No, what was that?
Yeah, I've recorded it, but I haven't seen it yet.
It's really good.
What
was
is
that?
it on, Drina?
It might be BBC4, I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think it was.
What was it?
Yes, BBC4 last night. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. What did I miss?
Really good.
Oh,
I have recorded it, but I haven't seen it yet.
it'll be on iPlayer, won't it?
Yeah.
Catch up.
Yeah. Oh, good.
Stop it. Nicky, stop nibbling my nuts. Come on, you've got to go down there. Come on, Nicky. You mustn't nibble my nuts. I've told you before. Now go down there.
Go on, mother, get on.
Oh,
So he's rounding up his sheep by the sounds of things.
What the heck he's doing? Sure.
you can come in the caravan with me on Glow, but nobody must know that, okay? Don't be quiet. Glow, it's okay. Glow. Fine. You can't come in the caravan now, Glow. Right. See you later. Stay there. Shh. This is getting really embarrassing. Right, okay. Right, okay. I hope you didn't hear any of that then.
Yes, we did.
We did.
By the way, Glow is my sheep. Well, one of them. I got 6 sheep. They take turns to cuddle up with me at night.
Oh, you've got nothing else to cuddle up to, you may as well.
Might as well, yeah.
Oh, shut up. Right, okay, let's find out. Is there any news from anyone tonight? I do believe Andy can't join us this week because Roger upset him last week, but what's new? Anything from you? Shut up, Rog. Any news from you, Rog?
No, nothing particular at the moment.
Right, nobody's interested in anything you've got to say anyway, Rog. Just don't worry about it. And away a lame excuse. Anything that you want to say, Pete?
Well, I was very impressed with your observation post.
Yeah, it is impressive. It
certainly is. Yeah.
It is. And that belongs to Archaeology Cymru. So we just gotta we just gotta move it, and I gotta work with Pritchard. So that's probably what we're doing.
Yeah. Fair enough.
Anyway, thanks for that, Pete. Anything we'll let everybody in on this another day. Margaret.
Yeah.
I just heard Dan Snow talking on something. He's been on an expedition looking for Shackleton's ship.
Oh yeah.
And they found it.
Yeah.
Wow.
The Endurance, they found it, and it's perfectly preserved.
Yes.
I think they're going to be doing a television program about it very shortly. But they showed pictures of it, and it's almost intact.
Yeah.
Do you know you're perfectly preserved? Does that mean they're going to do a television program about you?
Oh, well, I've been embalmed.
Thanks for that, Margaret. Right, what about Andy's away because he's doing something with his daughter, which is the first time he's been away in ages. Drina, anything you want to say?
Well, I did mention while you were out about a program about Neanderthals. I think it's a series of programs, and it's very good. You should need to watch it.
Is this the like film version where it's like get sort of, you know, when you've got proper Neanderthals, you know, that one?
What?
Eh?
They look at the skeletons, comparing them to human, you know, and then out how they moved, and they were shorter than us, and how they hunted, all sorts of things. They bring up all sorts of points. It's really interesting.
No,
and
there
then
was
you end up with one that looks like one. They reckon.
Fair. No, it's true. No. What it was? There was a series some years ago. It was like a load of actors, and it was like they all acted as Neanderthals, and there was quite an interesting sex scene, and I just thought, that was the series, but obviously it's not.
It's not that one. No, it's definitely not that one.
But you know the one I mean. Thank you, Drina.
Program's
Let's move
fine.
on. Yeah, thanks, Drina. Anything you want to say, David?
No, Doreen's correct. It was a very good thing.
Yeah, I'm just trying to work out. David, you're implicating yourself on that one. Right. Okay then. Pat, anything you want to say, darling?
No, thank you.
Okay.
Oh,
And no Claire, which is a bit of a shame. We haven't seen her in a couple of weeks. Right. Okay. So, last week there were problems with technology last week, and hopefully I've sorted them out. Now, since last week, I've got next week you're going to be entering into my new office with me, right? And it's it's a nice space. So that's where we'll be next week. My Archaeology Company's really expensive computer is in there. You know, the one with all the technology that cost $1,500, which hasn't been in operation since last September. So that'll all be up and running next week.
was that Cannon Street, was it?
What?
Cannon Street?
No.
Oh,
Roger.
Good.
Roger, keep your nosy nose out of this, love.
Oh,
Good night. Sure. Right, okay, Roger, stop interrupting. You're like a bad smell. It don't go away.
It's a bit harsh.
I can take it, don't you worry.
Do you know Roger had the
Got the lovely
opportunity?
ladies listening, despite you, Carl.
Sure. Roger had the opportunity of going on the next excursion, right? And he's not on it. And I'm actually doing most of the next excursion. And Roger's not going to be on it. And he had an opportunity to give back as much as he takes. Right.
Where's the excursion? Where is it?
Well, there are actually two places left. It's the West Wales one. It's
Oh, right.
Oh, right. Don't seem too enthusiastic. Oh, okay then. Oh, right. It's like, well, I tell you what, right? I don't like Cumbria either, but I don't make a point of it. Right. So this week we're going to be looking at Goughs Cave. Now, Goughs Cave, located in Cheddar Gorge. Now, anyone who's been to Cheddar Gorge, hopefully would have been to Cheddar Gorge like 20, 30 years ago when it wasn't massively touristy. Yeah. To drive down Cheddar Gorge now, this time of year, up until about October, is just a nightmare. Parking and all the rest of it, right? It's quite expensive to go in there. And it's expensive because they need to limit the numbers of people going into the caves, in all due respect. But the caves themselves are absolutely amazing. They've done the owners of the Cheddar Gorge complex have done a wonderful job. I've got to say that. But obviously, everyone wants to go there, and you know, by having the prices set the way they are, it sort of tries to restrict numbers, but still people go there, which is great. Anyway, so what we need to do is we need to look at Cheddar Gorge, and we need to look at a specific cave within Cheddar Gorge, which is known as Goughs Cave. Now, we could do the whole Cheddar Gorge, and we could look at all the speleologist finds, you know, all the cave finds and all the rest of it, stalagmites, stalactites, and all the rest of it. We could do all that. But I don't think we got time to do that tonight. Tonight's, I don't know if tonight's going to be the same as last week, because last week was really in depth. We had lots of facts, figures, caves, bones, Roman, Paleolithic, Neolithic. We had all it on Gower Peninsula. Hopefully it's going to be a bit more succinct. Hopefully everything's going to flow really well. So we're going to go on to photos, and we're going to go oh, hang on a minute. Right, if we go there and we go there, done. Hang on a minute.
Yeah, we've got the map.
Oh,
The map.
I didn't ask you, right?
What?
It's gone wrong. Right, the thing with the technology is when the images are up, you've got to watch all of them. So I got to do this.
What?
Right, you see what I'm doing there? You guess what it is, yeah? Shut up, Rog.
No. No, can't see any images now.
Yeah,
No.
I know you can't. Look, I know. Look, I'm aware of that. All right, it's fine.
What? Not again.
See, can you see it now?
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
we kept them bloody still. We did
Look,
well.
look.
Yeah, hang on a minute, Carl, too quick.
What is this? A comedy night or something? What is it?
No,
know-
just slow up a bit. Too excited?
I tell you what, this is like that Will Smith thing, isn't it? I say something and somebody comes up and punches me on the stage. Oh, that was absolutely brilliant. Anyway, nobody knows what I'm on about. Anyway, so Goughs Cave is in Cheddar Gorge. Now, there it is. It's within the Mendip Hills, Somerset, and it's a carboniferous limestone landscape, and it's the cave itself goes for a distance into the rock of 115 meters, which is quite, compared to the cave systems we did last week. It was like we went into cave systems at like 5 meters in depth, and we went into cave system. The deepest one that we visited last week was 50 meters deep, but this one is, well, when you go into cave systems, actually 115 meters deep, right? But I haven't explained what that means. 115 meters deep underground, actually it goes for a distance of 2.12 miles long. So when we did last week, we did cave systems, which were like 5 meters deep and 5 meters in length and whatever, right? This is huge, right? This goes on for 2.12 miles long, right? 150 meters in depth. It's a big thing, right? And contains a variety of large chambers and rock formations. Now, this is Goughs Cave. So Cheddar Gorge is full of loads of caves, and they've got underground river systems and everything, stalagmites, stalactites. Now, this itself, here we go. There's Goughs Cave there, and you've got your coach park. It's full of coach parks. It's all the way up here. Roger, before you say calm down, shut up. I'm telling you to calm down and shut up. Anyway, so you've got all these here. You've got this wonderful landscape, and you've got all this. So this is what I'm talking about. It's catered for tourism, and Cheddar Gorge, and this itself is the place to be if you really want to look at underground stuff. But mind you, I'm selling this out a little bit there because Dana Rogoff cave system is quite interesting. Being a former caver myself, I can't go underground anymore. I just can't. I had an experience a few years ago. Do you want me to tell you this experience? Oh, sorry, I will. I managed a project in Cyprus years and years ago, which is a project that I don't talk about for certain reasons, and it involves a victim from the war in 1975 and all the rest of it. So I don't talk about the project for there's one other reason why I don't talk about it. I went into a cave. I decided, I had 2 people with me, and I decided to go into a cave system. So we had all the safety protocols. I had a rope tied around my waist. I had a radio system. I had helmet. I was kitted out. I had torches. I went into the cave system, and funnily enough, it was one of those cave systems that after a while the radio wouldn't work. And because I wanted to go on a bit further, I actually severed my rope lifeline, and I didn't know that the team were tugging on the rope outside, and they tugged the rope all the way out. So I kept going into this cave system, and I thought, all right, then I can't speak to anyone, and I kept going, and I thought, right,
Frozen. You're frozen, Carl.
Oh, chopped up again.
Yeah, little beeps.
my 2 people out. I need to disarticulate my arm to get through. It's serious, right? I'm panicking now. So I've got to take off all my kit, right, to try and get through, my helmet and everything. And I eventually get through. And as I'm looking down, it's only the lair of a massive snake, right? Where there's skin everywhere. And I'm really panicking now. As soon as I got outside, the woman outside she punched me in the face and stormed off, because how irresponsible was that?
we were really worried about you. I'm not going to be worried about you anymore. The woman was strangely called Michelle. It was another Michelle from my past. She was not happy. She didn't really speak to me again after that. But the moral of the story is I don't go in caves anymore for that reason.
I've been in one Agonafwen, same thing.
You same thing happened to you, did it, Rog?
Well, they lost the track of it. There was a wire, a guide wire, put in by a GPO or somebody to help us through, and something had broken. And so we had to try and break back to the break. It took a time. It gets a bit worrying, to say the least, especially in the cold November and everything. But we got out in the end. But you're supposed to tell people and all this, so it was a bit off. I didn't enjoy it. It was,
so you won't do it. You won't do it again, Rog, will you?
no.
No, yeah. So we're both idiots, Roger, but we always knew that. Anyway, so shut up, Rog. So Goughs Cave itself was actually discovered in 1892 and was explored in 1898 by a guy by the name of Richard Cox Gough, right? Guess who the cave was named after? Him. It was
Mother,
shut up.
Mr. Gough.
It's obvious, isn't it? It was named after him, you melon. Anyway, so it was originally known as Sandhole, and because there was all this wonderful stuff in there, and you know, it was a wonderful, beautiful system, and it was amazing. If I show you an image of it, hang on, we don't want any of that. There, look at that, it's great, isn't it? Stalactites and stalagmites. I've got to remember how this works. Stalagmites go down.
Oh, stalagmites
no,
have
no,
a pump.
Stalactites. C for stalagmites come down.
No, I've got to work. Let me do this.
Stalagmites, G for ground, goes up.
Stalagmites mound up.
Oh, God, can you just let me do this? I realised the mistake I made, right? Tights down, mites up.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yep.
Well, I made the mistake and you guys were trying to make me feel like a right idiot.
No, just
Oh, that's not
nice and
difficult.
steady, no, Carl. Nice and steady.
Thanks, Rog. Thanks a lot.
You're doing
Anyway.
well.
I'm so pleased, Roger, right? Roger,
Good.
can you just let me get on? Anyway, 1892, 1898, and this Richard Gough, right, was so amazed with the cave system in Cheddar Gorge, you know, Gough's Cave. He not only had it named after him, a year after he explored it again in 1898, in 1899, he electrified the cave so people could go in there. So I think that's absolutely amazing. That, you know, he realized that you know, there's money to be made out of caving, and you know, and interesting enough, not many years after, I think it was the Danarogov cave system, I think it was in 1920, that they did the same thing. They sort of opened it for people to look, because people love looking at caves. And just think, if somebody disappears down a cave, then, you know, you keep all their stuff and you sell it on, job done. But anyway, the point is this cave system is the cave that that lots of amazing finds have actually been found in, including this guy. He's called Cheddar Man, right? And there he is. There's his remains, right? He's called Cheddar Man because he's from the Cheddar Gorge, right? And he's a bloke. So, thanks. Unfortunately, the cave system does get flooded, and actually, the one sign of how the cave system was created is because of the flooding. Because what happens is you've got the Carboniferous limestone, and usually, as we said last week, you've got Carboniferous limestone. In all the gaps of the Carboniferous limestone, there's this lias limestone. Well, I'll just go through the process again. What happened is that the likes of Flatholm, the likes of Glastonbury Tor, the likes of Caldy Island, and so on, all these are Carboniferous limestone and bream down Carboniferous limestone. And what happened? This was formed over 350 million years ago. and that was formed on the ocean, sea bottom. That's how limestone's created. Sandstone and mudstones formed in Great Lakes. Anyway, long story. What happened is that was pushed up, and that was like the land that you see. The land, it created huge mountain ranges, is the Carboniferous limestone, and in between that, sandstones created. Then all that dropped down again underneath the sea to create this huge sort of ocean, and then it lifts up again. Start again. It creates this massive ocean landscape. Yeah, and then in between all the gaps and all the stuff that we created when the Carboniferous limestone was above ground, above water level, in all that, underneath the water, lias limestone fills all these gaps. So when it rises up again to form the likes of Bream Down and Flatholme, what then happens is that these caves and all the rest of it that were ex caves filled in with lias limestone, that all dissolves. It's all sort of gradually eroded away, and then creating the Carboniferous limestone caves that you see today. Hopefully that's made sense. It didn't to Roger, but nothing ever makes sense to Roger. So what we do have is that before the wonderful set of human remains, right? This guy is the oldest set of deliberately buried human remains found anywhere in Britain or whatever, and this is what Goughs cave looks like today. It's a proper touristy centre, a bit like Vindolanda, to be honest with you. And we'll come back to these images, all these wonderful images, and what they have found. So within all these systems, again, it looks absolutely brilliant. Love it. We'll come back to that image. But if we put the skull on the screen, and there you go. That's an interesting skull, because initially, in the 1890s, initially they found skeletal remains of both human and animals, and all of these. Well, no, when I say all, that's not really fair. Lots of the bones that we do find of humans and animals show signs of cut marks and breakages consistent with defleshing and eating. Now, what we've got the fragments of up to 7 human skulls, including a young child of about 3 years, and 2 of them are adolescents. Now, interesting enough, the reason why we've got this brain here, is not only that it shows signs of defleshing and eating, the brain cases appear to have been prepared as drinking cups or containers. Now, this type of way of preparing skulls dates back from beyond 12,000 years ago, which is slightly before the date of our Cheddar Man. So what I need to say is, in answer to a question I had last night, you can imagine I'm teaching this new class and I've got 12 people in it, and they've only been with me a month. And one of them asked the question, which you can see people's jaws dropping. And they said, well, some of the human remains on the Gower, could it be possible that some of the human remains on the Gower could be cannibalized? And I said, yeah, why not? And I said, well, in 1980, let me get my date right. This is important. In 1984, when I went to the islands of Zakynthos, I actually ate monkey's brain, right? A monkey's brain was like any normal, texture. It was quite weird, and it was quite spongified. But I have eaten monkey's brain, and so I got an idea what human flesh tastes like. And I have actually tasted human flesh, because I was telling them all this last night, and they were actually horrified, all of them. And but you guys are not horrified by anything I'm telling you. I've actually tasted human flesh as well, because I had a growth on my side this one time, right? This like mole. It got really big, so I cut it off. And I thought, I wonder what this tastes like. And it was actually like eating any normal flesh. So yeah, I do know what human flesh tastes like. And if it's if it's edible, and then there's food, this is food, then people would have eaten it. And I think, not that I'm afraid, not that I'm sort of a big fan of Fred West or anything like this, but or you know, I'm actually a vegetarian. Yeah, I am a vegetarian, so I'm not going to go around eating people. But the fact of the matter is, there are some traditions on this planet that actually believe in absorbing human flesh to keep the spirit of the individual alive. There's Amazonian tribal people. So what they do, they semi cremate people, and then what they've got left, they sort of they grind it up in a pestle and mortar paste, and they put sort of wild grasses with it. Well, no, when I say wild grasses, wild grass grain with it, and they grind it up and they put it into a porridge, and everyone has a bit of that, right? And what it is, it's keeping the person alive by indigesting them. And we do it today, not in Western society, but we do it today. And actually, strangely enough, I'm sure that one or two of you may have tried Chinese herbal cures that actually involve ground up mummified remains. I reckon that over your lifetime, at least one or two of you will have actually tried that. So we're doing it in modern day society. So there's no reason why they shouldn't have done defleshing and eating flesh in the past, and therefore why should we judge them for it? So all that little journey that I've actually given you and told you about was to try and make the horrific aspect of eating human flesh horrific, and try to make us understand that these people did it for lots of different reasons. So what we do find, and I'm gonna have a slurp on my tea, what we do find is that shut up, Rog. What we do find in 1903, if we do this, right?
Yeah.
Roger's upset, you know.
Okay.
They found the skull of this bloke. This is Cheddar Man. And the reason why you call him Cheddar Man is because, but he should have called him Goth Man, actually, because he's actually from Goughs Cave. He was actually found in 1903, and if we go back to an original sort of image, if we go back, right, if anyone starts having a fit by looking at these images, look at that there. Doesn't he look great? Love him. All the digits, well, most of the digits are there, right? Fine specimen of a man, fine, very fine. This was found in 1903, and it should have been called Goth Man, but it was called Cheddar Man. This guy, Richard Cox Gough, couldn't have had all the glory, could he? He is Britain's oldest complete human set of skeletal remains, and is dated to have died more or less 9,172 years ago, on the 14th of August at 8:15. But so over 9,000 years ago, the body actually dates from. So it's a great set of human remains. He was actually originally believed to have been dating to maybe 12,000 years ago, but this was before we had all the dating stuff. There might be some contamination with the body. Now, what I want to do, right, is I want us to chuck some information at you, and I want us to do Cheddar Man in a little bit more detail. Right, so the stuff I want to chuck at you, which is what you already know. So before anyone says this and that, so we already know that we understand this. So this individual, is genetic markers suggesting that he's actually based. His genetic markers are still to be found in the modern human population, known as the phenotypes. Anyone who's actually followed the chap by the name of oh God, the name was on the tip of my tongue. It was this guy he still does, Dr. Chapman, I think it is. He does lots of YouTube videos, and he was doing them throughout the pandemic. And and he was talking about phenotypes and phenotypes. Basically the phenotype, the genetic marker, phenotype genetic marker, makes it easy. These are actually his phenotypes are seen in the modern day human population. The genetic markers, they're seen in modern human population. Shut up, Carl, you make it overcomplicated. Anyway, so we do believe from the model of the genotype, the phenotype, we know that indicates that he probably had green eyes. And it's very likely that at that stage he may have been lactose intolerant. So what we're gonna spell that out, what that means, right? You can't tolerate having milk. However, I'm going to chuck something in here that might be of assistance to us. And guys, can I just muck things up a minute? No, I'm not going to muck things up. I'm just going to check something a minute. Hang on. Right. Okay, that's fine. I just want to check if anyone's waiting there. They're not. Now, I need to spell this lactose intolerant stuff out. Now, there's a difference between horse milk and normal cow and goat milk, right? It might have been that he was tolerant to horse milk. And I'm going to chuck a little fact in there that we've done before, but I'll just spell it out. We know that horses were originally managed by human beings, animal husbandry, not to ride, but for their milk, because the horse milk is a lot more tolerable than cow or goat's milk, or sheep's milk for that matter. And yeah, we're planning to have a little baby Glow, and she's a strumpety black cross Shetland sheep, right? And obviously I'll be able to try some sheep's milk then as well, so I can tell you what that tastes like. I'll send Margaret up a bottle. So I wanted to explain that a little bit before we actually do the Cheddar Man stuff. And I'm whittering on about, I'm whittering on a bit, but you know. We also believe that the individual had, if we look at a reconstruction, we'll come back to these reconstructions. Sorry, there's the reconstruction. Looks very, very much like Roger on a good day. I did say looks very similar to Margaret. Dark curly hair or wavy hair. And this is the thing that I'm feeling is not relevant. Whenever I've done this, I felt uneasy by saying that the individual had dark or very dark skin. And then I say, so what? And the reason why I say so what, it gets very racial then. So what I'm going to say is we'll accept that it probably had dark skin, right? But we're going to leave that there. And because I don't. This is exactly the question, Pete. This is why I don't want to go any further. Okay. Because it gets why should he, and you go into dark areas, right? That's not a pun.
It's just the area he lived in that most people had pale skin. That's all, because of the lack of the amount of sun.
Yes, and this is why we're going to leave that one in the box. So, okay, but we'll come to the Cheddar Man again. We're gonna do this be a bit more after the break. So there is a reconstruction, there is a replica, and I do believe we've got an image of the replica. The reason why these images are all over the place is because I'm trying a new technology tonight, and hang on, we did have a replica here somewhere in the cave. Oh, blow it! Hang on, there is a replica that they've got in the cave, right, which is laid out in sort of where it was placed, right. I might actually find that in the break, but I don't want to muck things up because it's going so well at this minute. So there's a replica at here, And there's basically there's two actually. There's one in the Cannibals Museum at the Gorge, which is a separate museum. There's one in a cave, and the actual proper one is actually in the Natural History Museum. So there's three. The other human remains have been found as well. So if we go, there you go. We've got skull. We've got bits of the upper mandible, as it were. And what we've got is that they are still finding human remains today, 2010, for example. And what they are seeing is that there's I need to talk about something else a second. When these were actually found, they were found in 1903. And the problem is when they've been put on a desk and in a cabinet and moved around and handled and kissed and hugged and whatever, right? Unfortunately, it's impregnated with the likes of, modern carbon, and it's been out in the air, right? So we're pretty sure the body dates to 9,172 years ago. We're pretty sure it dates from that, but give or take, because there's a little bit of contamination. Now, this is interesting. When the other human remains that they have actually found, such as where's these jawbones as well, and there you go, like this and like this. So they've been finding new stuff, and rather interesting that instead of being later, some of this stuff actually dates from approximately 14,700 years ago. So it puts it well into that period of being cold. Yeah, I don't care what anyone says, this is the end of the ice age, but the end of the ice age doesn't really come for about another 2,700 years, 12,000 years ago. So it's not exactly the end, is it? That's a long time. And so it's really interesting that we're getting earlier dates for when the cave system's used. And one of the points, and we're going to go back to this again. Let's just look at this wonderful skull. One of the points is re-examining all the evidence, and what we are doing is re-examining the evidence a little bit more clearly. And when we're re-examining the evidence a little bit more clearly, using 3D microscopy, you're able to get more detail. Not only that we're able to understand that it's been defleshed. There's one thing that they've actually understood. Now this is quite odd, and I don't know if you can see how odd this is, but the way they're defleshing the human remains is the same way they're defleshing animal remains. Yeah, and the reason why that is odd and an odd concept, they're treating the two as the same genre, as it were. And you would think maybe they would treat the human remains in one way and they would treat the animal remains in another way. That's not the case. It almost says that eating flesh from any other mammal is the same as eating flesh from our own kind. Now, be that as it may, and now that we've come to accept in this lecture, cannibalism's the type of thing that people did, and people do it still. Except the people on Papua New Guinea, I don't think they've eaten anyone for a few years, but I think there was a case not so long ago that somebody did go missing, and they found that they'd been eaten by a local tribe. But other than that, it doesn't usually happen anymore. Unless you're in the outback in Australia, people disappear and there's whole families go missing and eaten by Australians. But that's something else. So what we've got is the idea of really understanding that these human skulls deliberately fashioned into ritual drinking cups or bowls. Now, you guys know me by now, and you know I don't like using the word ritual because it's almost as if, oh, come on, let's have another reason. Now, isn't it really practical to these are a perfect shape? How many other animals have skulls like this? You think of one? Are we going there? No, I can't think of one. Give me an example, Pete. How many animals is a perfect shape for a bowl, a human skull? How many other animals have skulls like this, Pete?
Possibly a gorilla or
Yeah,
orangutan.
primate.
Yeah, but you're not going to get these in. As far as we know, there's no evidence of any of these other primates in Britain at that stage.
No.
So the point is, Pete, we're looking practical. It's an instant bowl, and also you know that it's not going to leak, so it's perfect. And the other thing as well is the other thing as well is right now. This is another point. There's 2 points here, right? If we're going to do a balanced argument, we're going to have 2 points, right?
Could it be something to do with a family connection?
Right,
A piece of the family is still alive, virtually. They're being within the family.
Pete, I want to keep that. Can you just keep that there a minute? Because I want to do the other 2 points, right? Because the other 2 points are important, right? The first thing is it's been defleshed, right? I'm going to do the counter argument. It's been defleshed. How do we know they ate the flesh, right? I'm saying that they ate the flesh because it's hanging around, but do we know they ate the flesh? Now that's a point. One day we're going to be
flesh on a skull.
Thank you, Peter. Thank you very, very much. Now this is the thing thank you, Pete. That's the one point, right? So we're presuming that they ate the flesh, but Pete, you've just said it. Are they eating the brain? Now, the other thing as well is I do know this, and I've seen somebody do this, right? It was actually at St. Fagans Welsh Folk Museum, right? And there's this woman said, I want to show you all something. So she broke open the skull of a little rodent, right? And she took this into a pestle and mortar, and then she used that brain tissue to actually treat a skin. And she said that your brain tissue itself is what you need to treat a skin, right? In every animal, your brain tissue is enough oils and all the rest of it to treat a skin. So in other words, the oils from a human brain could be used for lots of other things. Can you use oils from a human brain to actually light your way? That's really interesting concept, right? That's the first point. So the other point as well is that now this links sort of in with what Pete was saying in a way, right? They're formed into bowls, right? Were they used as bowls? Were they used as drinking cups, or were they just nice ornamental things, right? The only way we're going to be able to understand if they were used for drinking cups and bowls if there's actually traces in the inside of the skull, like lactose, like acids associated with anything really. So we might be able to get those traces, fruit acids and so on. That would be on the inside of the skull. So the other thing as well is, how long were these waiting around before they were actually used as drinking cups or bowls? But were they actually used as drinking cups and bowls? What I'm doing is giving you different counter arguments. Now, the other point as well is Pete's point is more important than anything that I've mentioned, right? We're not going around the houses. Pete's point is more important than anything, right? And Pete's point is so fixed. It's a 90% probability, probably 95% probability that the skulls that these belong to the people who actually took the flesh off them, people who use these, because the human population at that stage in Britain, okay, if we're talking about over 14,000 years ago, the human population in Britain at that stage if I wanted to be a gambling man, right, and I really wanted to gamble and I really wanted to kick this into the long grass, it was about 1,000 people. And that was probably divided into groups of 30 people. It was sustainable. If you want to think about that, if you make it 25, right? Quick mathematics, 20 groups of people over the whole south of Britain. I think I've done my maths correct there. 25, no, 40, the four times. Oh no, that's 40 groups, isn't it? Sorry, 40 groups. Yeah, 40 groups.
Gone quiet.
Yeah, can you still hear me?
Now we
Yes.
can. You went quiet.
Went off.
Oh right, sorry. The point I want to make there is that the contact between other groups would have been so limited that you're not going to wipe them out. You're going to trade with them. And the biggest point with all of this is that there's 95% probability that the skulls that we're actually looking at belong to the people who actually worked the skulls in the first place. Yeah? Is that all sounding okay?
Yep.
Yeah.
Good. So what I'd like to do at this stage, right? What I'd like to do at this stage is I'd like to my technology has gone a bit tough. So I've got to put a light on, right? There we go. We've got my light. Put the light on for me. Right. So what I want us to do now, I actually want to take a break. So I want to find that image of the body in Goughs Cave as it's laying out there. Right. So what we're going to do, we're going to ask if there's any questions. So any questions from anybody? Roger.
No.
David.
No.
Trina.
Drinking out of the skull, would that be a comfortable thing to do? Would you not hurt your mouth on it? It doesn't look very smooth, the edge.
Now,
Yeah.
oh my God, Trina, how dare you come up with the obvious nature of the skull? It's a bit big, isn't it, to have put liquid in?
No, I'm more concerned with putting my mouth.
Very, 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 very good point that is, Drina, and that is a really nice sound point, right? That is quite a powerful point, really, and yeah, it is a bit big as a skull. It is quite chunky, yeah. That's a good point. What else would you say about that, Drina?
Well, the edge is not smooth at all, is it? It wouldn't be an easy thing.
Now, you are thinking very practically, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you're going to drink out of something like this, surely it would be very, very different. Surely that it would have a certain different ambiance to it, which I think, Drina, your point is a very, very interesting point, very, very sound point. And you know, do we challenge this thing that they were used for bowls? Do we challenge the thing that they used for drinking cups? But Pete's point is that they were part of the family relationship. And the other point as well is, which is a very powerful point. These people didn't have a lot of time in their days, right? They had to feed themselves at the end of the day. They to spend the time defleshing, to spend the time on these skulls must have meant something to them. And, you know, it meant something very powerful to have gone through that effort. Very, very good points, all them. Let's, have I asked Roger? Roger, anything you want to say?
No, it's follows from that. They're more like eating bowls than drinking bowls.
We need to find evidence of that being the case. Now, can I just mention, we every single week when we do these types of presentations, we're looking at human remains. In some ways, we don't give the animal remains a good raison d'etre, right? Now, one thing, I haven't actually got an image of it, but in 2020, a 20 centimeter long mammoth tusk with a line of 4 holes drilled into it was actually found. Now, this itself, extremely interesting piece of evidence. Now, it's interpreted that this device might be a ladder of some description. Amazing enough, you got this sort of huge mammoth, and you've got these sort of holes in it. And if you had 2 mammoth tusks and you put rope between them, you could use them as a ladder. How bizarre and how interesting is that? There's 15,000 years ago, also excavated at Goughs cave, was a reindeer antler that also has evidence of grooves in it. That's again really interesting. Are these grooves associated with rope making? This is so bizarre. I wasn't actually expecting this. But what we do know is that these people would have carried similar lives to anyone that would have hunted, would have needed things to carry and to store things in. Now, that's a really interesting point, because we mentioned these about drinking cups and bowls, but what about carrying things in these skulls, or actually using them as containers to keep things in? Now, that's actually very plausible as well. When I was actually, this is a really odd point, right? When I actually did with my young explorers, right, on Saturday, I did the subject of the Mongol hordes, right? And in 1206, you've all heard of Genghis Khan, right? And apparently Genghis Khan's hordes, some of them actually ended up in Italy. And this is a really strange fact. Some people believe that with the animal hides and the animal stomachs that they would use for storing things in, there's suitable evidence to say that they actually stored milk in them. Yeah. Listen to this. When they would go vast distances, in these hides that they would store milk, because it would go so cold, right? The milk would freeze, and that would have an effect of creating ice cream, right? It sounds so bizarre, I know, but apparently, when ice cream seems to appear sometime in the 1200s in Italy, with contact with these people from the East, the Mongols, and that's how they believe that ice cream was introduced into Europe, because milk was kept in animal hides. It froze, it had a reaction, and it had the texture of milk. So the reason why I mentioned that is that back in the past, they would have needed storage containers to store food. And when we think about these people, we always think about them sort of, living day to day. But they couldn't have just lived day to day. They must have actually stored food. This is really important. They must have actually stored food. Yeah, of course, yeah. But no, we say, of course, Pete, right? We say, of course, Pete, right? But why is it we see all these illustrations of people with like, wearing bear skins, and they're all around the hearth, and there's nothing around them, and they're just eating fish and eating meat, and you're thinking, well, it doesn't take much to use things to store food in. Okay, you've just eaten a bit of meat, right? You don't want to eat all that meat straight away, so you put it in a container.
Well, you can cure it, you see, with salt and stuff, and contain it within the within the stomach of an animal. Yes, and you can carry it about like the haggis. Now, the haggis was a part of the stomach of the animal, and that was used to store the offal, which then became haggis.
Were these defleshed 14,500 years ago? Do they?
Margaret, sometimes you really wind me up.
Oh, I'm sorry. Maybe Cheddar Man.
Hang on. You really wind me up, because that is a good question amongst the questions that we've had tonight, right? Now, the skulls themselves, very good one, Margaret. Very, very, very good one, right? Very good one. We know that the skulls date through radiocarbon dating to 14,700 years ago, right? But at which stage were they used as bowls? That is a really good question.
Well, it could have been the Cheddar Man 4,000 years later, couldn't it? For all
You've
we know.
obviously been listening to my dates exactly. And wow, that is a really good question, and that has blown me out of the water. Can I just mention this? I don't know if any of you, I've actually attributed it to you guys in my new class, yeah, and I mentioned that somebody in my my evening class on a Tuesday, I said, mentioned, well, what about the other caves in the Bristol Channel? I don't know if it's one of you guys, and one of you said, well, you know, the sea was 70, 100 miles out 16,000 years ago.
Yeah.
And as the sea gradually come closer and closer to Lundy, right, the landscape become flooded, right? Listen to the point. So what you had a band of Carboniferous limestone running from West Wales all the way over to the Gower, all the way into the Vale of Glamorgan. But in between the Vale of Glamorgan and the Gower, there's now sea, and between the Gower and West Wales, the sea, right? How do we know that there isn't a cave system within that basin, within the Carboniferous rock, but it becomes submerged, right? And somebody said that, and I thought, why is nobody talking about these submerged cave systems that are in the Bristol Channel? It wasn't one of you guys, because none of you seems to own that suggestion, and I thought that was absolutely brilliant. Nobody's talking about this stuff.
There might be a labyrinth because they all seem very close together.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's something else that was well, if one of you mentioned that, then that's great. So that comes in with everything that we were saying, and back to this thing about the mammoth tusks, you know, having 4 holes drilled into it, and or grooves. It says that the tusk itself, there were grooves around each hole, which would indicate that the grooves themselves had been the grooves around had been worn away because they had been rubbing against the holes that had been drilled into this mammoth tusk, that would indicate that it was part of a ladder.
Oh.
And if you know, and they've got this reindeer antler, right? And there's this reindeer antler dated back to 15,000 years ago that was found in Goughs cave. So can I just say, I've read a little bit deeper into this, and the one at Goughs cave, the reindeer antler is 15,000 years old. But I've made a slight mistake by saying that the mammoth tusk was found in Goughs cave. It was actually found in Germany, and that dates to 40,000 years. But what's happened in this? Let me have my flow. The evidence on the mammoth tusk is exactly the same as the evidence on the reindeer antler. Where on the reindeer antler there's holes in it. There's holes in the mammoth tusk. It's exactly the same evidence. So this is what we're saying. In both sets of evidence with the antler and the mammoth tusk, indicates that both of them may have been used as ladders, with thousands of years apart in time. The mammoth tusk dated 40,000, and the reindeer antler of Goughs cave dated 15,000. So similar uses indicated over such a long period of time. So if you've got ladders being used in caves, right, that's amazing, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? It's unbelievable. It's ladders being used in caves by these people. They use ladders. What? Really? Amazing.
They did at Grimes Graves.
I think that's absolutely great. Right. Yeah. Go on.
Didn't they have ladders at Grimes Grave?
Yeah.
Yeah, they did have ladders at Grimes Grave, but interesting enough, ladders at Grimes Grave date to 6,000 years ago. So there's a massive difference in time.
Yeah.
So sorry about that mistake I made with the mammoth tusk, but what the article was saying, it's exactly the same evidence as found with the reindeer antler at Goughs Cave. That's the link I made. So I read that wrong, but corrected the mistake there. But both have got evidence that they were actually used for ladders, and I think that's great. And what we're talking about, Grimes Grave's got the evidence of 6,000 years ago. We've got this evidence at Goughs Cave 15,000 years ago, ladder being used. And we've got this evidence in Germany 40,000 years ago, all different, using different materials. I think that's great. So, right, Pat, have we got anything you'd like to say?
No, I'm fine. Thank you.
You know it's going to go to pot after the break now, didn't you? Right, and what it is, right? Jessica joined us. She said, "Hi, Carl, the most wonderful boss in the world. I was sorting out my dissertation and lost track of time." Oh, then she disappeared again. Never mind. Right, so what we're going to do, we're going to take a little break, and what's that, Rog?
I'm going to finish early because I'm not going tomorrow.
You're going to leave us?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
Well, you're not leaving us now, are you?
Yeah.
You sound a bit gargled, Rog.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're not very clear. It's very difficult to understand what you're saying.
Roger, you're leaving us now, are you?
Yeah.
Oh,
Rog, how, you've let us down, right? You come on, you're really disruptive, right? And then you're leaving. How dare you, Rog? Okay, Roger, I'll see you next week, Rog.
See you tomorrow, perhaps.
Oh, hopefully see you tomorrow. Yeah, 6 o'clock.
Cheers, Ed. See you all.
Bye.
Bye, Rog.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Oh, that's disappointing, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh, there we are. Mm.
He comes and goes. He's really disruptive.
Well, he came anyway, didn't he?
He did.
Yeah, well,
He came.
Well, Roger does wind me up. I love him to bits, right? Yeah. Anyway, right. So what we're going to do after the break? We're going to look at Cheddar Man. We're going to try to see what we can understand with Cheddar Man, and sort of try and put him in a bit of context. So right, okay, let's have a sort of 10-minute break. So we've done a nice bit of time so far, and we'll come back then. I gotta get an extra couple of images. So that's what I'm gonna do. Speak to you in a minute.
I'll go make my cocoa.
Sounds good.
Yes, you got to have it.
They still do.
What, do you want a medal?
I used to love Horlicks.
Yes, I did like Horlicks.
I haven't seen it in the shops.
No, I haven't had it for many years, but I still like my bit of chocolate.
Can you tell me why
Chocolate drink.
goats?
I know they got it in Boots.
Oh, have they?
Yeah, Boots. Yeah.
Oh, Boots. Right.
No, not boobs. No.
Boots.
It's not in the boobs. No boobs.
Why is it that the cheese from sheep and the cheese from cows and the cheese from goats all taste different, even though they all eat the same stuff? Why is that?
Well, I tell you what, I got a goat, right? I got 2 goats and I got 2 sheep. So I might go and ask.
Tend to eat leaves rather than grass so much.
But yeah, go on. That's sensible.
Goat's cheese is quite strong.
Yeah, it would be. Yeah.
Yeah, used cheese is quite mild. I prefer that.
Mm. And that's what cheddar's all about, isn't it?
War. Come on, Somerset. Well, can I ask you why all pirates have come from Somerset? I just don't get that.
And Cornwall.
No, they're never any. No, Cornish people don't sound like that.
They do. They all say war.
No, they never say war.
War.
Yes, I've never heard anybody say that except what's his name in Treasure Island.
No, they don't. Do they? So shut up. Go away. Thanks.
I wonder who in films did that first, because it came from somewhere, didn't it? Must have been from an old movie.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
Like Errol Flynn or somebody.
Errol Flynn.
No, I can't.
Oh,
Errol Flynn would say who are.
Robin Hood, Robin Hood,
No, he said Yank. He
round
would never say that.
Errol Flynn wouldn't say who are.
No, he's a Yank.
He was Irish, wasn't he?
Was he? I
Yeah,
thought he was American.
Irish. But it was a Hollywood movie.
American Irish.
Yeah. Wouldn't have been Norman Wisdom, would it?
No, it was what's his name? Who played Long John Silver in Treasure Island?
I don't know. I don't know, but it would have been somebody in the movies a long time ago.
Yeah.
And it kind of stuck ever since, isn't it?
Well, yeah. I was with the Hispaniola once when they made one film of Treasure Island, because the Hispaniola at that time was built in Penryn, which is just down the road from me, and I used to spend my holidays on boats in Percule Creek, and we would go and assist the people with the Hispaniola to get it to Frenchman's Creek, which was supposed to be North Inlet on Treasure Island.
Yeah.
And a school friend of mine actually stood in for the American star of Jack Hawkins.
Oh, I remember him. Yeah.
He climbed up the mast, and was the knife was thrown at him and stained his shirt. He had his shirt stained with blood, and he kept his stained shirt. He was so proud of this stained shirt. And Peter Jewell was the Jack Hawkins there. I remember him.
Oh, Jack Hawkins.
Good friend of mine.
Yeah. He used to be in something called The Four Just Men. Do you remember
Yeah, more
that?
than likely. Yeah.
Yeah, gosh, that takes me back.
Mm.
But when you look at those old silent movies and the stunts that they used to do, and they did them all, didn't they? Those,
Oh, yes. Yep.
yeah. I'm trying to think of the one where he was hanging from a clock from a very high building.
Oh.
Keystone
Oh, yes.
Cops. Yeah. No safety net or anything.
Oh, wasn't that Back to the Future?
Oh, those were brilliant.
that was Buster Keaton.
Buster Keaton, that's
All
it.
right, all right.
Yeah.
I'm
Hanging
so get me cocoa
in New York.
And there's Harold Lloyd, la 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 la, Harold Lloyd, la 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 la, Harold Lloyd, Harold. I used to like all that.
Yeah.
Don't get too excited. Oh God, I'm supposed to be finding an image. Blue River, la 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 la, and the dreams of that of you. Oh, a huckleberry friend. La 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 la. Oh, God. Why? I think
Oh, there we are. Got my chocolate.
what do you want to medal, Rod?
Yep.
I've got an article which we're going to do as well.
Article. I can't do the article.
Oh, shut up! You're doing my head in. Taking a Mickey out of my accent.
Can you do lots of different accents, Carl, when you're doing your acting?
What's that?
Can you do lots of different accents when you do your acting?
It's getting into the moment.
When I do my talks, everybody seems to like my accent.
Yeah.
Many a time, someone's come up and said, "Oh, you sound like my grandfather."
Oh,
Who, me?
Not you.
Pete.
I thought you were asking me if I could do it.
What?
Accents. I don't know. I'm having a cup of soup at this minute.
You?
Yeah, I thought I'd tell you. Yeah.
Well, that's very interesting. I'm glad you're having a cup of soup. Is it a meaty one, or is it a tomato soup, or
Asparagus and leek.
asparagus? Oh, very upmarket.
Yeah, well, Pete, I didn't want to tell you because I didn't want you to your nose to feel out of joint. You know what I mean?
Well, it's a posh soup. Yes. Oh, yes. I'm just having standard drinking chocolate.
Well, that's for common people, isn't it, Pete?
Well, of course it is. Yeah.
Did you get in Waitrose?
Sadly, Waitrose has moved to Cowbridge. I occasionally go there.
Yeah, but where did you get your? Yeah, now here's a mark of a man. Where did you get your hot chocolate from?
Where did I get it from? Home Bargains, which has taken the place of Waitrose.
Oh, they only have Waitroses where people are very wealthy.
Well, they had it in Barry for years.
Is that a wealthy place?
Well, it
That's
is
right.
when all the visitors come, yes.
Oh.
Except on miners' fortnight.
Ah.
Oh, God. Sometimes you are funny.
When I lived in Blackpool, I grew up in Blackpool, they used to have Glasgow fortnights, and you just stayed indoors. They just locked up their daughters, all the mothers.
And the miners' fortnight be the fortnight of the miners' holidays, and they all come down in their buses to Barry Island to spend time on the fun fair and the beach before they went back to the mines. Yeah.
Is it a
and
nice
wash the coal dust off.
Is it a nice place, Barry Island? Is it worth a visit?
Barry Bados, it's beautiful.
Barry Bados, where the sun always shines.
I knew it wasn't a good idea going on this break because you're starting to break up, Margaret.
Oh.
You see that skull, when you said it holds quite a lot, it could have been a communal ritual where they actually passed the contents around and each person had a sip from it.
Yeah.
Being it one of the family, having a sip from one of the family.
Or it could be a swingers party and they'll chuck their...
I'm assuming that these people died naturally. They were not killed for that.
I would have thought so.
They were, they just died naturally. But how do we know?
There's evidence of wounding if they died unnaturally.
There's no sign of any trauma.
Well, it's difficult to tell if you've got the idea of cannibalism, isn't it?
Hmm.
Down in West Wales, they found a village where there had been an ancient village where there had been a lot of people. And when they discovered all the skeletons, etc., they found those people lived quite a calm life, but there was very little sign of any wounds of any sort or any sign of warfare. And so they lived a very peaceful existence, they say, simply because of the lack of wounds shown in the skeletons of the people.
Yeah. I wonder if they would have had quite a bit of food. There were lots of horses and such like, weren't there, back then?
Well, yes.
I wouldn't have thought they were starving, would you?
No. Well,
yeah,
they would only be starved when there's too many for the bit of land to support. When there's just a few of them, then there would be animals to kill. There would be vegetables to pick.
Yeah, so it wasn't that they were starving.
Nope.
Desperate, I wouldn't have thought.
I'm getting. I knew it. I wish I'd have just kept going any longer because
I'm what?
What?
Frozen.
Spit it out, man.
I'm listening to you guys and it keeps breaking up. What's that? Am I breaking up when I'm talking?
You were.
No. Sometimes you do, yes.
And the picture freezes.
It's
But it is now. No,
okay. What I'm going to... No, I'm going to go off and I'm going to come back on. Right. Yeah, I'm going to go off and I'm going to come back on. Anyway, I'll speak to you in a minute. So I'll be a sec. Hang on.
Okay. Bye.
Who's looking after Sandra, Pete? Does she have a family living nearby?
Well, she got a son and daughter not far away.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
Are they both? They'll both be working, though, are they?
Yeah, well, yes, of course, yeah.
Yeah.
See, only the tide goes out
Right. Okay, with them folks.
Oh, he's back,
Yes.
is he?
He's back.
He's
Right.
back.
I'm back. I'm back. Let's do Cheddar Man. Let's sort of do it. Come on, now, let's just.
Oh, you've frozen.
He's gone again.
Look at these photos.
There he is.
So, what's that?
You're there.
You froze for a bit.
All right.
Okay.
Right. It's sounding good.
Yeah.
You're frozen again.
Okay, let's get. Oh, hang on, I missed one. Hang on, go back again. Hang on, I missed one. Oh, blow, 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 blow.
The winds blow. We shall have snow.
La 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 la. Oh, sheep, sheep. No. Hang on, I think no on that one. Hang on. Okay, good.
Mm.
Is that looking good, folks?
Oh yes, that looked very good. Oh yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, there you
Whoa.
go. So right, okay, some reconstructions. Check.
That one of the skull, which you can look inside, looked very
As a
good.
man, as these human people. Oh God, it's happened again. We had the break and everything's gone to pot. Hang on a minute. Okay, if I get rid of that, it's not sounding clear at all now, is it?
It's all right.
No.
Is that a picture of you with the other chap?
Yeah, really funny, Pete. Thanks, love it. Right.
He's got the air.
Right, so let's try remains obviously versions. The one reconstruction on the right was what they believe that Cheddar Man originally looked like, and then you've got the image on the left, and this is this.
This is
This is that image that we in more. We do believe that this person may have actually looked like this. So if we get these set of human remains again, if we go back again, and we just look at
Oh.
the original remains. Oh, and I got, so if we look at there's it. This is where it was found, right? So again, we got the human remains dating back to over 9,000 years.
You keep breaking up every couple of minutes, Carl. You say
They-
something
they-
and then you go
the
silent.
individual- Oh God, what have I done wrong? Right, okay. What I'm going to do, I'm going to come right off again, and I'm going to come back on.
Okay.
Mm.
My bird's waking up.
Oh.
Right.
Oh no, she's not.
Next. Right, here we go. And Pete. Right, you.
Oh, froze again. Oh dear, he's having a bad one tonight, isn't he?
Yeah.
He is now. He was doing all right
He
before.
was doing all right at the beginning, yes, but
Yeah.
now he seems to every few words he freezes.
Yeah.
It was a pity.
Frustrating.
It's lovely to watch this bird. It gets his head up and he goes around and then fluffs up and sticks his head under its wing to go
Oh,
to sleep.
yeah.
Oh,
It's lovely to watch.
Yeah, I bet.
So watch they're building the nest, right? It's all an empty box right through to the nest now.
Yeah.
So there was two eggs in it this morning,
Yeah.
and hopefully be another egg tomorrow. She probably lays the eggs overnight.
Yeah. Nature's wonderful, isn't it?
It is. It's wonderful to watch.
You
Absolutely.
appreciate it more as you get older, I think.
You do. You do. Yep.
Cool. Is
We've
that
got
okay? Yeah, so I'm sounding okay? Good.
Yeah,
Yes.
you're sounding good.
Excellent. If I can put
Oh, dear.
let's put these images back on, and then there we go. I was saying before the break, and before I lost that reception, and so we've got all these images, and if we go, so I'm trying to use the technology at this minute. So one of the things I was saying about our set of human remains is that we got one in the cave, a replica in the cave, and we've got one in the Museum of Cannibals there. And what they say that there's some kind of lesion, some kind of damage to the skull itself above the right orbit, which might indicate that there's the person had been hit. We don't really know the details. Obviously, this was 9,000 years ago. When I said it was when I was in the British Museum, I mentioned, I should have said that it was in Natural History Museum. So what we've got from this is that the analysis indicates that this individual not only has got direct links to the local population, the DNA signature that we have for this individual is an overall Western European DNA. So these people that did exist in Britain and Europe are basically linked. Being a set of human remains that has been deliberately buried in the cave, understanding this as fairly unique. This is a fairly unique piece of archaeological evidence, and it's great that it was found by our Mr. Goughs in the late 1890s, because everything was really, really cared for, and obviously this discovery in 1903. Now I've got some other. This is another source telling me that we've got an indication that the person probably had green eyes.
I wonder
But
how.
it cannot be discounted. The person may have had blue or hazel eyes. So we've got the idea that the person had black hair from the reconstruction. So if we go to the reconstruction, which is here.
Can't see it yet.
The one on the left.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And this thing, when I said to Pete earlier on, why does it have to be black? The skin color could go on a discuss. I know we talk about people in the northern hemisphere being of light skin, and we think of people from Africa having dark skin, be very colours determinant on the conditions of the landscape that people lived in. So we think as we said,
You stop after
the
every couple of
phenotypes
words,
themselves,
Carl.
which, oh damn it, you know, next week
I'm sorry, Carl, but
yeah, I'm really sorry about this, because it was going so
it's going well for quite a bit, but then all of a sudden you go silent. I don't know why.
well, and I'm really annoyed. Didn't want this. Yeah, it's very much annoying me, that. But you can
No,
still
I
hear me.
understand now.
You can still actually still hear me, yeah?
Yep, at the moment, yes.
Right,
Famous
okay,
last words.
okay. Going to stop my video. There you go. Yeah. Hopefully that's helped, because I've stopped my video.
Right.
So what we think, just when we look at this individual, and he's linked to you know, this Western European population, you know, the DNA is similar with other remains, not only in Great Britain, but the DNA is similar to Europe. At the stage that this individual is actually dated from, this would still be the time that Britain is actually still connected to Europe. So, you know, it's quite understandable that you know, this individual sort of Brittany and places like that. But the most important thing is that this person is actually directly linked to some of the people living in the local population today. Bit of a dichotomy. What happened to those people that existed in Britain 14,000 years ago? Those skulls that we've mentioned, and those skulls that we've discussed are from this individual. So what actually happened to them? Was there some event that wiped them all out? But again, we're still talking about very small numbers of individuals that exist at any one time in Europe. Was bring in those other images that have actually been found within the cave networks, within Cheddar Gorge, in particularly Goughs Cave. Is this sounding okay at this minute?
Yeah.
Yes.
We're trying not to interrupt you, so
Hello?
Keep going. If you pause, sometimes it picks up where you left off.
yeah.
All right. So okay. So
We don't miss anything. It just gets a pause.
okay. No, that's fine. So one thing I want to do, a really perfect intact set of bones from Goughs Cave. And we've got all these other remains that we've mentioned, but what we are going to say and show you some other bones. Now, the one thing, and we'll look over to this. So this is rather interesting. Now, this is actually that skull that we've just seen. And can you see, instead of the skull actually being pink, they're saying that these have actually been shaped in a certain way. It's meant to look like this. It's not carved out in, you know, let's just take the top of the head off and whatever, right? It's carved out in a certain way. And this is what this analysis has shown us. So what I'm going to mention, I've got an article I want us to look at. This is actually some of the bones that have actually been found in the cave system. You can actually, in Goughs Cave, these dating back to the 1890s, and you can clearly see some marks on the these bones. You know, and look at that bone as well. And this is a bone that I can remember was found actually quite recently. You can actually find these really interesting tally marks on the bone. This is a human bone as well. Evidence that we're talking about with this skull. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to move away from these images a minute, and there's a bit of text I want to read out. That's if I haven't lost it in the process. So I'm just going to go here, and I'm just going to type in. I'm just hoping that Cheddar Gorge. I just had some. Just had this a minute, so I have to type this back up next week. Cannibals. Right, here we go. There it is. And okay. This is a rather interesting. This is directly based upon work that was actually printed in 2010. So I'm gonna read this out, and some of the stuff we've already associated with the Cheddar Gorge. Now we know those dates, 14,700 years ago. That's great, and again, 14,700 years ago was a time that Britain was very much 2,700 years to go before the ice starts to melt. So these dates, as we said, 2,700 years before. The burial in Goughs cave, some of those is left behind. Scientists have also discovered that these people were using sophisticated butchering techniques to strip flesh from the bones of men, women, and children. Now, that's a really interesting point. We've mentioned about stripping the flesh, right? But it's done in a very sophisticated way. Now, these people were processed to the joint of meat that with any other animal. And because of the marks that we actually find on the bones, it's very likely that they stripped every bit of the flesh off the bones that they possibly stripping a skull to eat is pretty pointless. So you're stripping the flesh from the skull for another reason. So the one thing that we can say is this: that we've got these people living in Britain before the ice melts, and it's rather interesting to try to pinpoint what happened to these earlier people that existed in Britain before 12 ago. What I think the point is that really, really important here was the discussion that Pete had earlier on, that the direct cannibalism is associated with direct members of your own community, or as we could say, instead associated with a stripping. Now, there is another point to all of this, which is quite more macabre, right? If you've got an elderly member of society or auntie, you may have deliberately killed them because you cannot spare the food. That's something else that's suggested in the research that I'm actually looking at. Now, to use the word bestand, processing these human remains is a bit disconcerting because they were done for various different reasons. Now, what we need to say, the civilization of Britain may have occurred quite dramatically after the ice melted. People moved in, actually killed the local population. Well, we don't really know because we don't have skulls dating to the period, and it's that people are coming over to Britain for various different reasons over various different times. Now, when we do look at Britain, when the ice is melting for whatever reasons, Britain was in a warmer and warmer, probably would have been a good place to be. So Goughs Cave, the bones and studying at Goughs Cave, Somerset the Mendips, is in fact, now this is a very interesting point, it is the bones themselves in Goughs Cave is so unbelievably rare, and we've got to be very, very careful what we learn from this body. I mentioned earlier on that there was evidence, possibly, that the person had a death, associated with his eye orbit. Maybe that led to his death. We don't know, but he's clearly buried within the cave system. He was buried with great respect, and interestingly enough, his skull wasn't taken away and treated as skulls, which had been. So what we do see again, all this evidence of cannibalism is before this individual ever existed, and it's that sort of puzzlement. It might be. Now, this is a very clear point. Now, this is an important point as well. What we see with the bones associated with Goughs Cave, dating back to over 40,000 years ago, they show signs of cannibalism. With buried just over 9,000 years ago, he hasn't been cannibalized. So this is really, really interesting. At some stage, they stopped being cannibal. So what we need to do is understand that there's a lot going on in Goughs Cave. There's a great deal going on in Goughs Cave, and they're using new dating techniques to date the evidence. It's really important to reanalyze human remains and to bring in new theories and new ideas. And the reason why that is, Pat, you went to the Tomb of the Eagles with me, didn't you, on Orkney?
I did.
Yeah.
I did.
As Pat, you got your mic. Yeah, did you actually hold one of the
I think so, yes.
skulls? Did you hold one of the skulls, Pat?
Was it a bird skull?
No, a human skull.
Was it? Oh, I don't remember. I dropped my camera, and that's what I was thinking about. It stopped working.
Oh, right. Yeah. Okay. Well, when the Eagles on Orkney, when you look at the Tomb of the Eagles on Orkney, they had a collection of human skulls, and lots of them were in the museum. Now, the problem is they said that disease was pitting in the skulls. They were all this sort of pitting in the skulls, and they said, well, that's not only a genetic disease. They had some kind of bone disease, but it's now turned out with new analysis, even though they had genetic, the bone illness as such, what happened is the pitting on the bones had actually occurred due to erosion. So it's very, very important to actually re-study bones and to try and understand them in different ways. So what we do find is that there are two major periods when people are living in the caves. There's this major period over 14,000 years ago, and associated with this person being buried just over 9,000 years ago. What we do know with both sets of people, thousands of years apart, is that these humans were nomadic, were sort of hunter-gatherers. They were relatively strong people living in sort of groups of about 30 people. Relatively well nourished. We can see this from the bone record. They had they were very, very well nourished. Inclusion with populations of Europe, a huge association with the horse populations of Europe. And again, as I mentioned earlier on, the horse populations of Europe probably provided for the milk for the population. But with the horses, they would have changed routes and they would have changed movement. As for the route of migration, people would have headed towards the likes of Cheddar Gorge, place of shelterment. 14,000 years ago, it probably would have had its own microclimate. So it's a very, very powerful place to be, and it's served as a refuge. And what we do find, if we want to make a parallel with the likes of the cave on the Gower, is that the caves on the Gower were occupied for thousands and thousands of years. So the bone fragments from 14,000 years ago suggest we are looking at a small population that has ended up being buried and part of a much bigger and wider group. So here's some questions, right? Which might answer. Are you there, Pete?
Yep. Yeah.
Right. Well, you said, "Ooh, what did that mean?" Some of the new research that they've been looking at with the defleshing of the bones is that the marks on the bones show they had been the subject of comprehensive butchery. Established that. We know that. But why deflesh those bones in the first place? Now, we've discussed this. Is it cannibalism? One or two of you think not. And was it an extreme act? Now, this is very interesting. So different theories have been put forward, ones that we haven't discussed. These include suggestions that it was a form of ritualist flesh, that flesh as a memento. Now, there's two things there. It's also said, right? Now, this is very, very important. This was the link with with that population seen as a source. It might be seen as an act of homage to a relative that had died. So, Pete, you mentioned earlier on about there's not much flesh on the skull.
Yes, yeah. Well, yeah, no, it's not. It's just, but it's so close to the bone. There's very little flesh there as such.
However, if you little bit and you ate it, yeah, it wouldn't act as much nutrition.
No, it'd be a bit tough.
But it would act as a bit of homage.
Mm.
Yeah. So in
Oh,
other
yeah, I
words, what
suppose,
is
yeah.
with respect to blood work? Yeah, yeah. Others have argued that it involved a form of crisis cannibalism. Now, this is something that we haven't talked about. This.
How would they
This is
eat the
something that
skull with
which
the
I
air?
touched upon at time. Ugh. Yeah, you'd have had to have taken a hair off, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Now, this is one thing that we've mentioned. Members of society when you had very little food, and maybe people took lots on who was to be eaten. So what we actually do find that was that Andy's air crash. I know some of you have probably watched the film. There was the flesh of the killed in the accident. There's no sense of people actually being deliberately killed, but obviously that flesh would have been quite still ready and available for people to have actually eaten. Apologize for this. I've completely dismissed the fact that these people killed other people in other groupings. I've completely dismissed this because, as I've said, look, you've got 40 fund, but we've got to think about this: a straightforward cannibalism in which humans hunt, kill, and eat other humans because they have a preference for human flesh. This is sometimes known as homicidal cannibalism. This whole area that you would kill people from other groups, but so the new evidence is emerging. These people were breaking up bones to also get the marrow inside. Brains seem to have been removed, but why? Tongues seem to have been removed. Well, I don't know how we're going to get that evidence. And it's also possible that eyes were being removed as well. It was very systematic work. You could probably right now, that is something that we haven't examined, but there are points, and I've looked at this. That, for example, in Scandinavia, there was a BBC documentary on this. If you're hunting an elk, right, you might fire an arrow at an elk, and you might go up to it, and you might say to the elk, I need your sustenance and your blood, and can I have your permission to kill you? I know it sounds very strange, right? That's very ritualistic as well. So not only are we trying to ritualistically kill human beings, if we are ritualistically killing human beings, I haven't really got the evidence for it. You might be doing the same with animals as well. You're treating animals exactly the same way as you're treating human beings. So that in itself is interesting as well, because you're elevating the value of the animals, all the other animals, at the same level as human beings, which might actually be quite important. These were very difficult times, and it is still quite possible people ate each other because there simply wasn't anything else to eat. The landscape, although rapidly recovering, so we're talking after 12,000 years ago, but before 14,000 years ago, it was pretty barren. Things were quite desperate. We don't see that human beings are being slaughtered on a mass scale, if that's the case, something that I'm not really for. It might have also been when we think about it, in the Iron Age, we got people like start again. In the Iron Age, we've got people like Pete Marsh in Lindo Moss, and we've got the bodies associated with the marshes in Denmark. So these people are actually bog bodies, and it looks like they've been ritualistically treated. There's no reason why people couldn't have offered themselves. And what I'm doing is going off in various different tangents to give you an idea, to try and answer some questions that you might have. And finally today, we'll mention this. At present, most evidence indicates that humans were probably using the skills that they had acquired in butchering animal flesh, which is quite obvious. In particular, the meat of horses as well as reindeer, which were quite favorites of these people in order to cut up humans who had died of natural causes. So what we're talking about, it's and then we're going back to natural causes. Did these people die of natural causes? Or, you know, there's lots of questions. We don't see any traumatic wounds in these individuals, which would suggest violence was being inflicted on living people. This was some kind of cultural process that they brought with them from Europe. I like the word cultural process. It doesn't sort of talk to us like it's the word ritual. Whatever the nature of cannibalism that was carried out by these early settlers, or whatever process, it did them little good in the end. So we're talking about those bones dating from 14,000 years ago. 2,000 years after the Ice Age ended, Europe was plunged into a new catastrophic freeze. So what we're talking about is that before 14,000 years ago, you've got this idea of cannibalism. And then what we do find is that after the ice melts, there's a catastrophic freeze for a little while, right? And this is going to affect populations and depopulation. So when we're talking about our individual finally from Goughs Cave Cheddar Man, he was one of a very small numbers of people that actually lived within that vicinity. Any evidence that he was killed, or but he was definitely naturally buried with all the respect that needed to be bestowed upon him. So what we're going to do, we're going to just go through a quick little bit of a slideshow, and then we'll call it a day. And hopefully that's sort of, if we go with all these, right, recap on all these images to sort of give you, and again, this was a new bit of technology I was using tonight, which I've never used before. And obviously it relies upon the fact that you've got to keep updating this. So let's just go with this. So again, there's our Cheddar Man in Goughs Cave. Was he a victim of being killed, or did he have some kind of injury and like created in that way, no other way in that way? When this came out, it's a fascinating find there, and I think this was back from about like they're human bones. They look like, and you can, you know, I think that was good to see this great sort of complex valley, Goughs Cave, and you've got these other caves, Pride Evans Cave, and you've got all these different car parks and all these other little centres and so on as well on there. There's and it's very much complete. It's much finer complete. It's in a much finer state of preservation than anything that actually came from Pavlan Cave, but that obviously dates from 20,000 years earlier. Again, there he is displayed in the Natural History Museum in London. And another look, obviously, we've got two replicas of these. Rib bones are fairly intact as well, and the reconstruction near in the Natural History Museum near the body in the cabinet. And interesting that we got that look. And it was thought that that was the earlier reconstruction, and they starting to think that that's not what we think the individual looked like. And it looks like a distorted nose on the one on the left as well, which is again really interesting. Going into the cave network, and you've got this sort of ladder and platforms going down. Again, look at that skull, extremely well preserved. You can see damage above that orbital there. There's actually a fracture there. You can see some damage. Was that the cause of death, they're saying? We don't know. And again, looking into that cave system and how it is today, Goughs Cave, and obviously the other caves at Cheddar Gorge. This is the visitor center, and you've got the cannibalism museum as well. That original image with the skull and other bits of bone, and that's that. So what we'll do, we'll call that a day with you. Are there any questions from any of you, please?
No.
No. Oh, right. Nothing from you, Pete?
No, just the last 10 minutes has been perfect. Prior to that, you kept stopping all the time, but the last 10 minutes were great.
Mine hasn't been perfect. It's been getting worse and worse all night.
Is it? Oh, the last 10 minutes were good.
Yeah.
Last 10 minutes, I didn't hardly get anything.
Oh,
Great. Anyway, thanks for that, Pete. Roger's gone. Pat, anything you would like to say? Well, what was the reception like in the last bit?
Well, a lot of pauses,
Okay.
waiting for you to continue, and you would continue then right where you left off. It was very strange.
Right. Well, next week I've got a completely different computer technology next week, so that'll all be resolved. Anything you'd like to say, Drina? Oh, go on. What were you going to say, Pat? You're going to say something else?
Nothing. Thank you.
Okay. Drina?
Just a comment, because I always thought when they stored milk in stomachs, it turned to cheese, not ice cream.
well, that's how they found cheese, wasn't it? By doing that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is. But strangely enough, the Mongols were different. They come from a very cold place, so it might have been as the cheese, as the milk. Yeah. It may have actually frozen as they were on the ride more or less straight away.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
What do you think about it? If that is freezing?
Gone again.
How cold was it? God almighty. That must have been cold. Margaret, talk to us.
Well, I'll try. I wonder if the skulls were used to collect the blood of the people, or would the blood would probably have congealed, wouldn't it, by the time they'd fashioned them?
Oh, black pudding.
Pudding,
Yeah.
We can't hear you. Sound like a piano.
Good night, all.
Good night, David.
Good night, David.
Hi, Dave.
You're gone again.
Yeah. We'll see you next week. It's just like a piano. Bing, bing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I hope it's better next week.
Oh, yeah.
The elk, for example, could have collected blood.
Did you hear that?
Something about blood collected.
I couldn't hear that.
So.
Can't hear anything.
Yeah.
No.
Tell us next.
Anyone else?
No.
Oh,
Anything?
I'm gonna go.
Oh,
You sound as if you're in pain.
it will be because I'm. Anyone want to say anything else?
No, I think I'll go. Bye,
Good night.
everybody.
Bye.
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 Anyone want to say anything else? No? It's gone. Okay. All right. I'll see you all next week then. No. Bye bye. No. See you next week. No. Bugger. The internet reception is apparently really bad.